Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, we're doing an update on Kaspa today. Have been away for the last 2 days or so. Haven't really even checked social media that much. Even my Discord and like done YouTube videos. Just been enjoying time with the family. It is pretty much Easter weekend, so for Christians and Catholics like myself, important time. And I just felt like, hey, kind of burnt out from a little bit of like social media and other stuff, and just perfect time to just enjoy time with the family, have some nice food, do what we have to do in terms of tradition for the Catholic and Christian religion. So yeah, just been off the grid practically for the last 2 days, but we are back. Now, I will say, not much has changed since I left, right? Last week, I barely even traded myself. I traded like one time, and that was in the beginning, and then I realized, things are really slow, and I'm like, I'm going to take this week off or just watch from a distance, and we can see, something like Bitcoin, ladies and gentlemen, right? This thing has just kind of ranged at best from, let's just say 83,200 to 85,500. So like, like a $2,000 range, a little bit more, which is not that much for Bitcoin, right? What is really a $2,000 range? Sometimes on a Saturday, if we have like a decent slow day, it might move like 2,000. Right? Sometimes Saturdays are even less. It might even move like $500. But yeah, just overall slow movement. But we have been kind of trending up, right? If we take away the wicks, we can see that we have had this, kind of like boom, lower highs kind of consistently getting created for something like Bitcoin. So things have been rising when it comes to altcoins and such, especially that Bitcoin dominance has sold off a little bit, which we expected for that to happen, but we expect that for happen to once we got to the equal highs. But overall, what's something that's going to happen is probably go down to here somewhere in this wick, and then we go like this, and then we go like this again, and then we go up, right? I know you might think, well, you're just drawing like doodles and scribbles, and it's like technically, yeah, but this kind of makes sense because, if I was supposed to break this chart down, I mean, probably go into this 4 hour order block right over here, the Bitcoin dominance, bounce off here, take out these highs, right? Probably retest off of these highs, probably take them out, and then again, sell off, do something very, very similar. So that's kind of what I expect. But Bitcoin dominance went down. Bitcoin went up, I guess, 1,000, 2,000 over the last couple days, which means some coins have done well. I talked about in my other video that, something like Turbo has sneaked up and recovered a good amount, right? Something like Turbo has gone up, roughly 25% in the last few days. Something like Kaspa, not so much. I mean, granted, it did have a great hold, right? It didn't really go down as much as other coins. So maybe that's why it didn't really pump as hard the last few days, right? Pretty much from our bottoms on Wednesday, where most coins kind of had like a decent bottom, to this current day, we went up 7% in the last few days. So not much. But like I said, we are generally in a nice range because, these are kind of our bottoms, while some altcoins, if they had a similar type of structure, maybe they would have went down all the way somewhere here and then they recovered, right? So in the end, even though Kaspa hasn't pumped that much the last few days, it still kind of ended in a similar boat like something like Turbo, where it is on top of its last relevant structure, right? So we can see that we are currently here. This is the last pretty much relevant structure. If we go to something like Turbo, because I talk about this a lot on my channel, I am not comparing it to. I'm simply just using this as an example because a lot of people that hold Turbo also hold Kaspa that watch my videos. So we can see, pretty much last relevant structure, and we are also near the last relevant structure, right? So same thing for Kaspa, same thing for Turbo, except the difference was we didn't dump a lot. Kaspa just held. So what is next is the question. Well, we know May 5th is a massive event. If you guys don't know what's going to happen May 5th, pretty much the blueprint, the roadmap is coming to an end in a positive way. we are going to go from 1 BPS to 10 BPS. So Kaspa, in a way, is going to become 10 times better. We also know global liquidity is going to hit the markets roughly, early May, early to mid-May. And even just from technical analysis, we can see we are recovering very, very well. We also know that I believe personally on this channel that this 3-month candle, which is April, May, June, will be practically the recovery candles upwards of these highs that we've had, from last year. That is what I truly believe. Worst case scenario, I expect this 3-month candle to maybe be something like this, where we kind of range here, and then the next 3 months, we pump really, really strong. I expect altcoin season to happen, right? In my opinion, summer to early fall. Okay, that is where I believe the first one will happen. I believe the second one will happen probably 2026 March, and then we're gonna crash in 2026. Early mid 2026. That is what I believe, right? Now, that is just pretty much based off the 3-month candles. That is based off certain timings. Obviously, I don't think, if anything, it will be earlier. I don't think in summer we'll necessarily pump. If anything, maybe early to mid fall is where we get the first altcoin season. So instead of like it being August, like late July, August, September, it might be like a mid-October or something. So, but generally that area, I still believe altcoin season will happen. I still believe Kaspa will do very, very well. Now, the only thing I am looking at for potential, pullback is maybe somewhere, taking out this liquidity, maybe going somewhere here before we continue going up. Overall, we are looking very, very solid, right? We do have this weekly institutional candle that we may tap into, right? May tap into here. So just have to monitor that. But if we just kind of ignore it and we start reclaiming, like say this level over here, that is going to be huge, because this level is actually really, really important, because we see there's lots of support and resistance. Once we reclaim that, then we are down to the last massive level. And once we reclaim practically 10.5 to 11 cents, there's no reason to ever go below it unless it is bear season. Okay. So, we've been kind of calling early reversal signs, and we've been talking about how, anywhere between like 5.5 to, let's just say, even 7.5 cents was a great purchase for Kaspa. So if you bought Kaspa during that time, absolutely fantastic. You could buy it right now, and even if it would drop to 7 cents, I would still say, well, you know what? It doesn't really matter. You don't need literally the most perfect entry, right, for these coins. Remember, you're not also going to be selling at the literal tops for coins either. So you kind of have to just get used to it, that buying near bottom and selling near top is much, much better than trying to literally snipe it and put so much pressure on yourself. But yeah, look, so these are the main ranges, right? We have this weekly order block. Once we retake this structure, the next main structure is here, because we can see that is where the monthly structure is. And at that point, we should not be looking to ever come back unless it's bear season. And of course, practically after that, the main target is to break past these highs. I do believe Kaspa will spring very, very highly up and very, very quickly. I do believe we probably will end around $8.70 this altcoin season. Obviously, if we have a double pump, it might pump faster or even harder the second time around. Even if we were to go to 40 billion market cap, which is roughly a 20x, which I do believe this coin will be one of those 35 to 45 billion market cap coins, then we would roughly end up at, like I said, $1.60, $1.70. So really, really optimistic about this coin. It's one of those coins where I am super, super confident in holding a lot of money, that I feel like, hey, if there's any altcoin that could, let's just say 7, 8, 10, 12, 15, 20x, and I feel safe, even though altcoins are technically quote unquote risky, this is one of those altcoins that I feel super, super confident in. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure to enjoy your weekend. And ladies and gentlemen, I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.